Wealthy businessman forbids son from speaking to Nanny until he screams, "She's the best mother." Richard Thompson felt his heart race as he climbed the stairs of his Los Angeles mansion. What he had just witnessed in the living room had left him furious in a way he hadn't felt in years. His mind swirled with confused thoughts about loyalty, betrayal, and the boundaries he had set to protect his son. That's when he found his 8-year-old son, William, clinging to the nanny Sarah, sobbing uncontrollably in her arms after a terrible nightmare. The 30-year-old woman softly hummed a lullaby while stroking the boy's blonde hair. The scene, which should have been touching, stirred an inexplicable rage in Richard. "Sarah!" his voice thundered down the hallway. The young woman startled and immediately pulled away from the child, who only cried louder. "Mr. Richard, I was just—" "You were disobeying my orders," he interrupted, fists clenched. "How many times do I have to repeat that I don't want this kind of closeness between you two?" William looked at his father with red, tear-filled eyes. "Daddy, I had another nightmare about Mommy. Aunt Sarah was helping me." "She is not your aunt," Richard exploded. "And I don't want to see her comforting you like this anymore. Sarah, from now on, you will keep your distance from my son. Your job is to tend to his basic needs, nothing more." Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes but tried to maintain her professional composure. "Mr. Richard, with all due respect," William was very upset. "It was just a nightmare." "I don't care." He pointed a finger at her, his expression as stern as his tone. "From now on, when he cries, you call me. When he's sad, you call me. When he wants to talk, you call me. Is that clear?" "But Daddy—" William tried to protest. "William, go to your room, now." The boy reluctantly obeyed, casting a desperate glance at Sarah before leaving. Richard waited until he heard the bedroom door close before turning back to the nanny. "Sarah, you've worked here for 2 years. You've always been an exemplary employee, but lately I've noticed you crossing boundaries. My son doesn't need another mother figure in his life. He has me. Mr. Richard, I would never try to replace— That's exactly what you're doing." He walked to the window, staring at the well-kept garden of the estate. "My wife Jennifer left us 3 years ago. Since then, I've done everything to ensure William doesn't suffer another emotional loss. He can't get attached to people who might leave at any moment." Sarah swallowed hard. She knew the tragic story of the Thompson family. Jennifer had disappeared one Monday morning, leaving only a letter explaining she needed to find herself. No one had heard from her since. "I understand your concern, Mr. Richard, but a child needs affection." "He has my affection." Richard turned sharply. "I'm the one working 16 hours a day to give him everything he needs. I'm the one paying for the best schools, the best doctors, the best clothes. He doesn't need anything else." "But Mr. Richard—" "The discussion is over, Sarah. If you can't maintain the proper professional distance, I'll have to find someone else for the job." In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the house changed completely. Richard had installed security cameras in every room to monitor Sarah and William's interactions. The young woman was forced to ignore the boy's pleas for help, always calling his father whenever he needed anything. William, in turn, grew quieter and quieter. At mealtimes, he barely touched his food. During playtime, he preferred to be alone. At night, when nightmares came, he cried silently, knowing Sarah could no longer comfort him. "Daddy's in his office, William," Sarah would always say when the boy looked for her. "I'll call him for you." "But I just want to talk to you, Aunt Sarah," the boy insisted with sad eyes. "I can't, sweetheart. Your father doesn't allow it." The situation grew even tenser when Richard discovered that, despite all the restrictions, William had found a way to communicate with Sarah. The boy would slip drawings under her bedroom door, always depicting the 3 of them together, him, the nanny, and his father, all smiling. "Sarah!" Richard knocked on her bedroom door one Saturday morning. "I need to speak with you immediately." When she opened the door, he was holding one of William's drawings. "What is this?" "Mr. Richard, my son has been leaving drawings for you, even after everything we discussed. He slips them under the door. I didn't ask for—" "And you didn't return them? Didn't tell him it was inappropriate?" Sarah lowered her eyes. "Mr. Richard, they're just drawings. He's a child." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. He's my child. Richard threw the drawing on the floor. And since when do you have the authority to decide what's appropriate for my son? At that moment, William appeared in the hallway, still in his pajamas. Daddy, why are you yelling at Aunt Sarah? William, go back to your room. But Daddy... Now, William. The boy ran off and Richard turned back to Sarah. Starting Monday, you'll only work when I'm home. I want to personally supervise all your interactions with my son. Richard's decision left Sarah devastated. She had genuinely grown attached to William in the 2 years she'd worked in the house. The boy had become much more than just a job to her. It was as if she'd found purpose in caring for that child who so desperately needed maternal affection. On Sunday, her day off, Sarah walked through the upscale neighborhood where she worked, reflecting on her situation. She had grown up in a humble family in rural Wisconsin and had come to Los Angeles seeking opportunities. The job at the Thompsons' home was the best she'd ever had, but now she felt trapped in an impossible situation. "Sarah?" a voice called out. She turned and saw Mrs. Williams, the Thompsons' neighbor. The 70-year-old woman was one of the few in the neighborhood who treated domestic staff with genuine kindness. "Mrs. Williams, good afternoon." "How are you, dear? You look troubled." Sarah hesitated before answering. "Just work problems, Ma'am." "Problems with Mr. Richard?" The elderly woman's perceptiveness surprised her. "How did you know?" "My dear, I've lived here for 40 years. I've known that family since before William was born. I've seen Richard's transformation since Jennifer left. You knew William's mother?" "Of course. Jennifer was a lovely woman, but she had her inner demons. She was always very insecure, very emotionally dependent. When she found out she couldn't have more children after William's difficult birth, she fell into deep depression." Sarah listened intently as they walked. "Richard threw himself entirely into work after she left. It's his way of coping with grief. But he doesn't realize he's repeating the mistakes that contributed to his wife leaving." "How so, Ma'am?" "Richard was always emotionally distant. When Jennifer needed emotional support the most, he offered material things. When she cried, he bought gifts. When she said she felt lonely, he hired maids to keep her company. And that didn't work. How could it? The woman needed her husband, not employees. Now he's doing the same thing with his son. He thinks he can replace affection with money and overprotection." Mrs. Williams' words echoed in Sarah's mind all night. The next day, when she returned to work, she found Richard waiting in the room along with an unfamiliar woman. "Sarah, this is Patricia. She'll be your supervisor from now on." The 50-year-old woman, with a stern appearance and cold gaze, greeted Sarah with a curt nod. "Patricia was hired to ensure the house rules are strictly followed. She'll report directly to me about all your activities." "Mr. Thompson, is this really necessary?" "Yes, it is. William is at school. When he returns, I want you to limit yourself to preparing his snack and then leave. Patricia will be responsible for helping him with his homework." In the following days, Patricia's presence made the atmosphere even more tense. The supervisor followed Sarah around the house, jotting down her activities in a small notebook. Any attempt at affectionate interaction with William was immediately reported to Richard. William, in turn, began displaying concerning behavior. He started having nightmares every night, waking up screaming and calling for his mother. During the day, he became withdrawn, refusing to play or talk to anyone. "Daddy, can I talk to Aunt Sarah?" he asked daily. "William, how many times do I have to explain? Sarah is our employee, not your aunt, and you can talk to me about anything. But I want to talk to her." "About what?" "About things." "What things, son?" "Kid stuff." Richard didn't understand that there were confidences a child only felt comfortable sharing with certain people. To William, Sarah had become the maternal figure he desperately needed, especially because she had been there during the hardest moments after his mother's departure. The situation reached a breaking point on a rainy Thursday. Richard had organized an important business meeting at home with potential investors for $1 million project. The gathering was taking place in the main room when William came home early from school due to feeling unwell. The boy ran into the house, soaked from the rain, looking for Sarah. When he found her in the kitchen under Patricia's watchful eye, he approached her with tears in his eyes. "Aunt Sarah, I don't feel good." "William, you need to talk to your father." Patricia immediately intervened. "Mr. Thompson is in a meeting, but I can help you." "No, I want Aunt Sarah." The boy began having an anxiety attack, breathing rapidly and trembling. Sarah knelt beside him, instinctively reaching out, but Patricia stopped her. "Don't touch him. I'll get Mr. Thompson." "He needs help now," Sarah protested. "Those are the rules." William started crying uncontrollably, his breathing growing even more irregular. Sarah could no longer hold back. Defying orders, she hugged the boy, whispering comforting words as he gradually calmed down. It was at that moment Richard walked into the kitchen, followed by the investors drawn by the noise. "What's going on here?" Patricia immediately reported the situation, emphasizing Sarah's disobedience. Richard turned red with anger, especially under the scrutiny of his business partners. "Sarah, you're fired. Get your things and leave my house immediately." William's scream echoed through the entire house. "No, Daddy, no, she can't leave." The boy clung desperately to Sarah's skirt. "Please, Daddy, don't send her away. I promise I'll be good." "William, let go of Sarah now." "No, no, no!" The scene was becoming increasingly awkward in front of the visitors. One of the investors, an older man, whispered something to the colleague beside him. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah tried to intervene, "let me explain to William." "You won't explain anything. Get out of my house now." "Aunt Sarah, don't go, please," William screamed between sobs. Richard tried to pull his son away from the nanny, but the boy clung with surprising strength for his age. The situation was spiraling completely out of control. "I hate you, Dad," William suddenly shouted. "You drove Mum away, and now you want to drive Aunt Sarah away. I hate you." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard stood frozen at his son's words. The investors exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly embarrassed by the family drama. "William," Richard tried to approach. "No, go away. I don't want you anymore. I want Aunt Sarah and Mom." The boy ran to his room, slamming the door hard. Richard remained in the kitchen trying to process what had just happened, while Sarah quietly gathered her things, also crying. The investors quickly said their goodbyes, clearly uneasy about the family situation. Richard lost the deal that day, but that was the least of his problems at the moment. After Sarah left, William locked himself in his room and refused to come out for dinner. Richard went upstairs several times, knocking on the door, trying to talk, but the boy wouldn't respond. Around 10 at night, Richard heard screams coming from his son's room. When he unlocked the door with the spare key, he found William having another nightmare, but this time it was different. The boy was sitting up in bed, shouting incoherently. "Mom, Aunt Sarah, don't go, please." "William, wake up, it's just a dream." But when the boy opened his eyes and saw his father, he only cried harder. "Go away, you make everyone leave." Richard tried to hug his son, but William pushed him away. "I don't want you, I want Aunt Sarah." "Son, Sarah isn't coming back, she—" "Why are you so mean, Dad? Why won't you let anyone love me?" The question hit Richard like a punch to the gut. He stayed silent, unsure how to answer. "I just want to protect you, son." "Protect me from what?" "From Aunt Sarah. She's good. She loves me." "William, you don't understand. People can leave just like your mom did. I don't want you to get hurt again." "But I'm already hurting, Dad. I'm hurting because you won't let anyone stay with me." Richard spent the entire night awake, reflecting on his son's words. For the first time in 3 years, he questioned whether his way of protecting William was doing more harm than good. The next morning, William refused to go to school. He stayed in bed, turned away from his father, not saying a word. Richard tried to convince him in every way, but the boy remained in absolute silence. "William, you have to go to school." Silence. "Son, talk to me." Silence. "What do you want me to do?" Still silence. Richard decided to cancel his appointments for the day to stay home with his son. For hours, he tried different approaches to get William to speak, but the boy seemed to have decided he wouldn't talk to his father anymore. In the afternoon, Richard called the child psychologist he had consulted after Jennifer left. "Dr. Robert, I need your help urgently." The psychologist arrived at the house by late afternoon and spent over an hour trying to talk to William. When he came downstairs, his expression was grave. "Richard, we need to have a serious talk." They sat in the living room, and the psychologist got straight to the point. "William has developed what we call selective mutism. It's a form of extreme emotional protest, usually related to trauma or intense stress situations. But he talked to me last night." "Yes, during the crisis. But now he's decided unconsciously that he no longer wants to communicate verbally. It's a way of exerting control over a situation where he feels completely powerless." "How can we reverse this?" "Richard, I need to be frank. The child is in deep emotional distress. From our conversation 3 years ago, you mentioned wanting to protect him from further emotional losses after his mother's passing. But it seems that in trying to protect him, you ended up creating an emotionally barren environment." Richard stood up and walked to the window. "Doctor, I just want what's best for my son." "I understand, but William is a child. He needs emotional bonds to develop properly. By cutting him off from the nanny, especially so abruptly, you recreated the trauma of losing his mother. But Sarah is just an employee. To you, maybe. But to him, she had become a substitute mother figure. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, Richard. How is it not bad? What if she leaves too? What if she doesn't? Richard, you can't protect your son from every possibility of loss. That's impossible and harmful. What you can do is teach him how to handle relationships in a healthy way. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The psychologist went on, "William needs to relearn how to trust that he can love people without it meaning they'll disappear. And you, as a father, need to learn that allowing your son to develop healthy emotional bonds isn't a threat to your authority." "But what if Sarah decides to leave? What if she finds another job?" "Richard, that possibility will always exist. But while she's here and showing genuine care for William, why not let him benefit from that relationship?" In the following days, William remained mute. He went to school, but the teachers reported he didn't speak to anyone. At home, he only nodded yes or no when necessary. Richard tried everything. He took his son to his favorite park, bought him new toys, even offered ice cream for breakfast. Nothing worked. William was physically present but emotionally absent. It was during this difficult week that Richard got an unexpected call. "Richard, it's Dorothy, your neighbor." "Mrs. Williams, how are you?" "I need to talk to you about Sarah." Richard felt a tightness in his chest at the mention of the former nanny's name. "What about her?" "She's working at the Miller's house 3 blocks from here, but Richard, that girl is really suffering. Yesterday I saw her crying at the bus stop. Mrs. Williams, Richard, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you really believe you're protecting your son, or are you protecting yourself?" The question caught Richard off guard. "What do you mean?" "My dear, I lost my husband 15 years ago. I know what it's like to be afraid of getting hurt again, but I also know that a life without love isn't living, it's just existing. Mrs. Williams, it's different. William is a child." "Exactly. He's a child who needs to learn that the world, despite its uncertainties, can still be a place worth trusting and loving." That night, Richard lay awake thinking about the conversation. For the first time, he considered the possibility that his actions were driven by his own fears, not his son's well-being. On Saturday, he decided to do something he hadn't done in months: take William to the mall. Maybe a different environment would help the boy open up again. During the outing, Richard watched other families. He saw parents playing with their children, talking, laughing together. He realized his relationship with William had become mechanical. He provided, William received, but there was no real emotional connection between them. In a toy store, Richard tried once more. "Son, pick whatever you want. Anything." William glanced at the toys without interest and simply shook his head. "William, please, talk to me. Tell me what you want." The boy stared at him for a moment, and Richard saw tears forming in his eyes. William opened his mouth as if to speak, but then just turned away. It was in that moment Richard understood. His son didn't want toys. He wanted something money couldn't buy back. He wanted Sarah. On Sunday, Richard made a decision that would change everything. He called Mrs. Williams. "Dorothy, could you give me the address where Sarah is working?" "Of course, Richard, but may I ask why?" "I need to talk to her." The miller's house stood on a quiet street, on a property smaller than his, but just as well kept. Richard parked out front and sat in the car for a few minutes, gathering courage. When he rang the bell, a middle-aged woman answered. "Good afternoon, I'm Richard Thompson. I'd like to speak with Sarah, if possible." Richard Thompson, her former employer. "Yes, ma'am." The woman studied him briefly before replying. "Sarah is in the backyard with my granddaughter. I'll get her." As he waited, Richard heard laughter coming from the back of the house. When Sarah appeared, he could see she was genuinely surprised and a little uneasy. "Mr. Richard, is something wrong with William?" Her immediate concern for his son touched him deeply. "Can I talk to you for a few minutes?" "Of course, let's go to the porch." They sat at a small garden table, and Richard wasn't sure where to begin. "Sarah, I want to apologize for how I treated you last week." She looked at him startled. "Mr. Richard, let me finish. Since you left, William hasn't spoken to me. He hasn't spoken to anyone, really. The psychologist said he's developed selective mutism." Sarah pressed a hand to her chest, clearly worried. "How is he? Is he eating? Sleeping?" "He barely eats. Has nightmares every night and—" Richard paused, struggling with the words. "He said he hates me." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "Mr. Richard, I never tried to come between you and your son. I just wanted to take good care of him. I know, and maybe that's the problem. You cared for him so well that I felt replaced. But that was never my intention. I know that now. Sarah, can I ask you a personal question?" She nodded. "Why were you so devoted to William? Beyond the job, I mean." Sarah hesitated before answering, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Mr. Richard, 5 years ago, I lost a son." Richard froze. "What?" "I had a little boy, Tommy. He died at 7 from pneumonia complications. I was alone. His father left when he found out I was pregnant. Sarah, I had no idea. After Tommy was gone, I thought I'd never be able to care for a child again. But when I started working at your house, William reminded me so much of him. The way he smiled, the way he asked for comfort when he was sad." Richard felt smaller by the second. In William, I found a way to honor my son's memory. By taking good care of him, it was like I was caring for Tommy too. I never meant to overstep, Mr. Richard. I just wanted to give William the love I can't give my son anymore. The silence that followed was long and heavy with emotion. Richard finally understood that Sarah's devotion wasn't a threat to his fatherhood. It was a gift to his son. "Sarah, would you come back?" She looked at him, uncertain. "Mr. Richard, what about the rules, the cameras, the supervisor?" "There won't be any more absurd rules. No cameras, no supervisor. I just want my son back, and it seems that will only happen if you return too. What if I get too attached again? Maybe the problem isn't you getting attached. Maybe the problem is me being afraid of attachment." Sarah stayed silent for a moment, processing the proposal. "Mr. Richard, can I set a few conditions?" "Go ahead. I want William to know he can talk to me about anything, including his mother. I want to be able to comfort him when he's sad. And I want you to understand that my affection for him is genuine, not professional. I accept all your conditions. And there's one more thing. Tell me. I want you to open up more with William too. He needs his father, Mr. Richard. Not his boss, but his dad." Richard nodded, knowing she was right. "When can you start?" "Now, if necessary." The drive back home was tense for Richard. He didn't know how William would react to seeing Sarah again. Would he be angry? Happy? Would he still refuse to speak? When they arrived, the house was quiet. Richard found William in his room, lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "Son, I have a surprise for you." William turned his head, but showed no interest. "Aunt Sarah came to see you." The boy's eyes widened instantly. He sat up in bed, looking eagerly at the door. When Sarah appeared in the doorway, William jumped off the bed and ran to her, hugging her tightly. "Aunt Sarah, you came back." They were the first words he'd spoken in a week. "Hi, sweetheart. I came because I missed you." "I missed you too. Daddy said you couldn't talk to me anymore." Richard stepped closer, feeling ashamed. "William, Daddy was wrong. Aunt Sarah can talk to you whenever she wants." "Really, Daddy? Really?" William looked at his father, then at Sarah, then back at his father. "Daddy, you won't send her away again?" "No, son, I won't." "Promise?" Richard glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "I promise." In the days that followed, the household dynamics gradually changed. William began speaking normally again, eating with appetite, and his nightmares lessened significantly. But the most noticeable change was in Richard. For the first time in years, he started coming home earlier. Instead of working late at the office, he spent evenings in the living room, watching movies with William and Sarah, or helping his son with homework. "Daddy, can you help me with math?" William asked one Tuesday. "Of course, son. Let's see what you're working on." As they studied together, Sarah prepared a snack in the kitchen. Richard realized for the first time he felt like part of a real family. "Daddy," William said suddenly, "were you sad before Aunt Sarah came back?" The question caught Richard off guard. "Why do you ask, son?" "Because you never smiled. Now you smile more." Richard looked at his son, recognizing an unexpected perceptiveness for his age. "You're right, William, Daddy was sad." "Because of Mommy?" "Partly, yes." "Do you still miss her?" Richard hesitated. It was a difficult but necessary conversation. "I do, son. Your mother was a very special person." "Why did she leave?" "Sometimes people need to leave to find themselves. It doesn't mean they didn't love us." "Will Aunt Sarah leave too?" Richard glanced toward the kitchen, where Sarah hummed softly while working. "I don't know, son. But as long as she wants to stay, she'll always be welcome here." That night, after William fell asleep, Richard and Sarah talked in the living room. "Sarah, I want to thank you." "For what, Mr. Richard?" "For teaching me that love isn't about possession, for showing me I can share my son's affection without losing my place as his father." "You've always had your place, Mr. Richard. You just needed to learn how to occupy it differently." "Can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Did you ever think about having more children?" Sarah smiled sadly. "After Tommy passed, I thought I could never love a child the same way again. But caring for William showed me a mother's heart can expand endlessly." "And that isn't painful? Raising a child who isn't yours?" "Sometimes, but the joy outweighs the pain. Seeing William grow up healthy and happy gives me a purpose I thought I'd lost forever." Richard fell silent, admiring the strength and generosity of this woman. "Sarah, can I ask you a favor?" "Go ahead, Mr. Richard. Stop calling me Mr. Richard. Between us, just Richard is fine." She smiled for the first time since she'd returned. "All right, Richard." Weeks passed, and the family settled into a harmonious routine. William was happy. Richard learned to balance work and family, and Sarah found healing for her own emotional wounds in the boy. But their peace would soon be tested when a letter arrived in the mail one Saturday morning. Richard immediately recognized the delicate handwriting on the envelope. "It's from Mommy," William shouted when he saw the sender. Richard opened the letter with trembling hands, reading silently before deciding what to do. "Dear Richard and my beloved William, I know I have no right to write after 3 years of silence, but I can't live without news of you any longer. These years away have helped me understand so much about myself and the mistakes I made. Richard, forgive me for running when you and William needed me most. I was lost, suffering from a depression I couldn't admit. I thought you'd be better off without me. William, my love, I know you've grown so much. Mommy thinks of you every day and hopes you can forgive me someday. Richard, if you'll allow it, I'd like to see you, not to return as if nothing happened, but to ask for forgiveness and maybe start rebuilding our relationship gradually. I'm living in San Diego now, working as an art teacher. I've found peace, but never the wholeness only family can give." With endless love and longing, Jennifer. Richard finished the letter with his heart racing. William watched him anxiously. What did Mommy say, Dad? She said she misses us and wants to see us. Is she coming back? I don't know, son. She wants to talk first. Dad, I want to see Mommy. Richard looked at Sarah, who had overheard everything from the kitchen. She stepped closer quietly. Richard, can I give my opinion? Of course. William has the right to know his mother, and you have the right to decide if you want to give Jennifer another chance. And you? How do you feel about this? Sarah smiled with a mix of sadness and understanding. If Jennifer comes back, I'd be happy for William. He deserves to have his mother back. What about you? Where would your place be here? Richard, my place is where I'm needed. If Jennifer returns and can be the mother William needs, then my mission here will be complete. But I don't want you to leave, William interrupted, hugging Sarah. Can't I have Mommy and Aunt Sarah? Richard smiled, recognizing his son's innocent wisdom. Son, let's talk to Mommy first, okay? Then we'll decide everything together. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers so much. Now, continuing. Richard called Jennifer that same day. The conversation was tense at first, but gradually became more friendly. They agreed to meet at a park the following Sunday. William had been anxious since Saturday night. He couldn't sleep, asking 1,000 questions about his mother. Daddy, is Mommy still pretty? Of course she is, son. Will she like me? How could she not? You're her son. What if she leaves again? Richard hugged the boy, feeling his own insecurities. Son, sometimes people need time to find themselves. Your mother needed that time, but now she wants to come back. But Daddy, what about Aunt Sarah? What about her? If Mommy comes back, will Aunt Sarah have to leave? Richard looked at Sarah, who was packing the boy's clothes for the meeting. William, Aunt Sarah will always be part of our family no matter what. Promise? I promise. On Sunday, Richard, William and Sarah headed to the park. Richard had decided Sarah should come too, since she was now part of William's life. When they arrived, they saw a woman sitting on a bench wearing a light blue dress. She looked different, thinner, with shorter hair, but she was still the Jennifer Richard had once loved. When she saw them, she stood up slowly. William froze for a few seconds, as if he couldn't believe it was real. William, Jennifer called softly. Mommy, he replied, still hesitant. Hi, my love. Look how much you've grown. William ran to his mother, who hugged him tightly, crying. Mommy, I thought you were never coming back. Forgive me, my love. Mommy was very sick and needed to take care of herself. Richard approached, feeling a mix of complicated emotions. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Richard. Thank you for agreeing to see me. This is Sarah, Richard said, gesturing to the nanny. She takes care of William. Jennifer looked at Sarah with curiosity and gratitude. Thank you for looking after my son. It was my pleasure, Mrs. Jennifer. William is a wonderful boy. They spent the afternoon talking. Jennifer explained her depression, how she had felt inadequate as a mother, especially after learning she couldn't have more children. Richard, I was broken inside. I thought you'd both be better off without me. Jennifer, you should have talked to me. We could have faced it together. I know it was a huge mistake, but back then I couldn't see past my own pain. William listened, trying to understand the complexity of adult emotions. Mommy, you won't get sick again. No, my love. Mommy learned to take better care of herself, and now I want to learn how to be a better mother to you. But you're already a good mom. Thank you, sweetheart, but Mommy needs to earn that right back. Richard watched the interaction between mother and son, realizing William had developed an impressive emotional maturity for his age. The boy clearly loved his mother, but was also aware of the lost time. Jennifer, Richard said after a moment, what do you hope happens now? I want to know my son again. I want him to forgive me, and if possible, I'd like to try rebuilding our family. What about us? Richard asked directly. Richard, I know I hurt you deeply. I don't expect you to forgive me easily or for things to go back to how they were, but I'd like to try if you're willing." "Mommy, Daddy, are you going to get back together?" William asked. Richard and Jennifer exchanged glances. "Son, that's something we'll have to figure out little by little," Richard answered. "What about Aunt Sarah?" Jennifer smiled at Sarah warmly. "Aunt Sarah will always be welcome in our family. She took care of you when I couldn't. I'll always be grateful to her." Sarah was moved by Jennifer's words. "Mrs. Jennifer, I would never try to take your place. I just wanted to take good care of William. And you did. I can see in his eyes the love he feels for you. That doesn't make me jealous, it makes me grateful." In the months that followed, Jennifer began visiting the family on weekends. She rented a small apartment in Los Angeles and found a job at a nearby school. The process of reintegration was gradual and not always easy. William needed time to fully trust his mother again. Sometimes when she arrived for visits, he would act a little distant, as if afraid she might leave once more. "Will you stay for dinner, Mom?" he would always ask. "If you'd like me to, yes," Jennifer would reply. "And then you'll leave again?" "Just to my apartment, sweetheart. But I can come back tomorrow if you want." Richard watched these interactions with mixed feelings. On one hand, he was happy to see William reconnecting with his mother. On the other, he feared history might repeat itself. Sarah, meanwhile, adapted to the new dynamic with grace and understanding. She continued caring for William during the week, but made space for the biological family to reunite on weekends. "Aunt Sarah, don't you feel sad when Mom is here?" William asked one day. "Why would I feel sad, honey?" "Because then you're not the only one taking care of me." Sarah smiled, touched by the boy's sensitivity. "William, a person's heart is like a big house. There's room for many people to live in it. I live in your heart. Your mom lives in your heart. Your dad lives in your heart. You don't have to choose just one." "And do you live in Dad's heart too?" The question caught Sarah off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because he acts different when you're around. Happier." Sarah didn't know how to respond to that observation. The truth was, over the past few months, her relationship with Richard had grown into something more than just professional. There was a closeness, a mutual affection that went beyond their shared care for William. But with Jennifer's return, the dynamic had become more complicated. Richard seemed conflicted about his own feelings, sometimes looking at Jennifer as if trying to rekindle their old love, and other times turning his attention to Sarah in a more intimate way. The situation reached a breaking point during William's birthday. They had planned a small party with just a few school friends and close family. Jennifer had offered to help with the preparations, working alongside Sarah on the desserts and decorations. Richard watched the two women working side by side, admiring how they had developed a respectful and caring relationship. "Sarah," Jennifer said as they prepared sandwiches, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you have feelings for Richard?" Sarah paused, surprised by the bluntness of the question. "Mrs. Jennifer, please be honest. I won't be upset." Sarah took a deep breath. "Yes, I do. But I would never do anything to disrupt your family." "Sarah, look at me." She obeyed. "My family only exists today because you held it together when I failed. If Richard fell in love with you, it would be understandable and deserved. But what about you two? And William?" "William loves all of us. As for Richard and me, we're still figuring out if we can rebuild what we had." During the party, Richard watched his extended family, William playing happily with his friends, Jennifer chatting with the other parents, Sarah making sure every detail was perfect. At the end of the night, after the guests had left and William was asleep, the three adults sat down in the living room to talk. "Richard," Jennifer began, "we need to have an honest conversation." "About what?" "About our future, about what we all truly want." Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Jennifer, let me speak first. These months have shown me many things. I've seen how you've become a better father, how William has matured, how Sarah has become an essential part of this family. Where are you going with this?" "I'm getting to the point that maybe our family doesn't need to go back to exactly how it was before. Maybe it can be something new, something different, but just as valid. Sarah stayed silent, unsure if she should join the conversation. Jennifer, are you saying that... I'm saying I see how you look at Sarah, and I see how she looks at you, and I don't see that as a threat to my relationship with my son. But Richard, we tried. These past months we really tried. But we both know we're not the same people we were 3 years ago. Richard looked at Sarah, who was clearly uncomfortable with the situation. So what are you proposing? I propose we're honest about our feelings, that we prioritize William's well-being above all else, and that we let love happen where it wants to happen. Jennifer, I don't want you to feel excluded. Richard, I excluded myself 3 years ago. Now I want to be included again, but realistically, I want to be William's mother. I want to be part of his life, but I don't necessarily want to be your wife again. And where would you live? Nearby. I can rent the house on the corner that's for sale. I'd be close enough to be part of William's daily life, but far enough for you to have privacy. Richard looked at Sarah, trying to read her feelings. Sarah, what do you think about all this? I don't know if I have the right to weigh in on family decisions. Of course you do, Jennifer interjected. You're part of this family, whether you like it or not. Sarah, Richard stood and walked to her. How do you feel about me? The direct question left her speechless for a few seconds. Richard, I've fallen in love with you. I've fallen in love. But I never wanted to complicate your lives. What if it doesn't complicate things? What if it could actually make our family stronger? How? Sarah, you love William as if he were your own. I fell for you seeing how you care for him, how you care for me, how you brought joy back to this house. Jennifer wants to be William's mother, but not necessarily my wife. Why can't we make this work? Because people will talk. They'll judge. Let them talk, Jennifer said. What matters is that William has parents who love him and are present in his life. Richard knelt beside Sarah. Sarah, would you marry me? She stared at him, shocked. Richard, will you be my wife and William's stepmother? Will you share our family with Jennifer in harmony? And Jennifer is okay with this? I am, Jennifer answered promptly. I am, because I know you love each other, and I know you'll love my son. And I know this way. He'll have 3 people who love him unconditionally. Richard, yes, I will. Richard kissed her gently as Jennifer smiled through tears. Now you have to explain this to William, Jennifer said, laughing. How do we explain it? By telling the truth, that his family will be a little different from other boys, but it'll be full of love. The next morning, the 3 sat down with William to explain the new family dynamic. Son, we want to talk to you about some changes that are coming. What kind of changes, Dad? Mom will still visit us, but she won't live here with us. Why? Because Dad and Mom realized we love each other as family, but not as husband and wife. William processed the information with the seriousness of an adult. And Aunt Sarah will live here with us. Actually, she's going to marry Dad. Is she going to be my new mom? She's going to be your stepmother. You can call her Mom Sarah if you want, but your birth mother will always be Aunt Jennifer. And do you all like each other? We all care for each other very much. So I can have a mum, a stepmom, and a dad? Yes, you can. William thought for a few seconds before breaking into a wide grin. Cool, it's like having a super big family. The simplicity with which the child accepted the situation surprised the adults. To him, more love was never too much. The following months were about adjustment. Jennifer bought the house on the corner and set up a visitation routine that worked well for everyone. She picked William up from school on Wednesdays and spent every weekend with him. Richard and Sarah married in a small ceremony, with William as the ring bearer and Jennifer as one of the witnesses. The family photo, Richard, Sarah, William, and Jennifer, was framed in the living room. "Daddy," William said one night as Sarah tucked him in, "is our family weird?" "Why do you ask, son?" "'Cause Jake from school said it's weird to have two moms." Richard and Sarah exchanged glances. "William," Sarah replied, "some families are different from others. Some kids have just a dad, Others just a mom. Some are raised by their grandparents. Our family is special because you have so many people who love you. And is that bad? Of course not. It's wonderful. Then I'll tell Jake he's wrong. No, sweetheart. You can explain to him that there are different kinds of families, and they're all good as long as there's love. 2 years later, on a Sunday morning, Richard woke to noise in the kitchen. He went downstairs to find Sarah preparing a special breakfast, with William helping. "What are you two up to?" "It's a surprise, Dad," William shouted excitedly. "What kind of surprise?" Sarah walked up to him with a radiant smile. "Richard, I'm pregnant." He froze for a few seconds before hugging her tightly. "Really? Really? I'm gonna have a little brother," William cheered. "Does Jennifer know?" "Not yet. I want to tell her today." When Jennifer arrived for Sunday lunch, they shared the news. Her reaction was pure joy. "Sarah, how wonderful. William is going to be an amazing big brother." "And you, how do you feel about it?" Richard asked. "I feel happy. This family is growing, and that's beautiful." "Will the baby call me Grandma?" she joked. "They'll call you whatever you want," Sarah replied. During the pregnancy, something lovely happened. Jennifer became a constant, supportive presence, helping Sarah with morning sickness, accompanying her to doctor's appointments when Richard couldn't, and preparing William for his siblings' arrival. "Sarah," she said one afternoon as they assembled the crib together, "I want to thank you." "For what?" "For turning my mistakes into something beautiful, for taking care of my son when I couldn't, for loving this family so generously. Jennifer, you've taught us so much too. You've shown us that real love isn't possessive, that family can be so much more than social conventions. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Look at William. He's a happy, secure, loved child. If that's not doing the right thing, I don't know what is." When Emily was born, a little girl who inherited Richard's eyes and Sarah's smile, William fell instantly in love with his sister. "Can I hold her?" he asked at the hospital. "Of course, just be gentle." "Hi, Emily. I'm your brother William. You're going to love our family. We have so much love to give you." Jennifer, who was present, couldn't hold back her tears. "Richard, do you see how mature he is? How he understands that family is about love, not conventional structures. He learned that from us, from our unconventional but genuine way of being a family." 5 years had passed since that day when Richard had forbidden William from speaking to Sarah. Now sitting in the living room on a Sunday afternoon, Richard reading the newspaper, Sarah nursing Emily, William playing on the rug, and Jennifer helping with a puzzle, they reflected on the journey that had brought them there. "Daddy," William, now 13, suddenly said, "do you remember when you wouldn't let me talk to Aunt Sarah?" "I remember, son. It was one of the worst periods of my life." "Why did you do that?" Richard looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "Because I was very afraid, William, afraid that you would love other people more than you loved me." "But that's silly, Dad. You can love lots of people at the same time." "You're right. It took me a while to learn that. And what if you hadn't learned?" Richard considered his son's serious question. "Then our family wouldn't be what it is today. I would have lost Sarah. You wouldn't have Emily as your sister. And Mommy Jennifer wouldn't be part of our lives in such a beautiful way. So, it's good that you learned. It was the best thing that ever happened to me." Jennifer stood up to leave, as she did every Sunday after lunch. "Bye, everyone. See you Wednesday, William." "Bye, Mom." "Bye, Jennifer," Richard and Sarah said together. After she left, Sarah looked at Richard. "Do you ever regret how things turned out?" "Never. Do you?" "Not for a second. This family is the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me. Even though it's different from what people consider normal." "Richard, normal is an overrated word. What we have here is real, it's true, it's full of love, and that's far more valuable than normal." William walked up to his father with a drawing. "Dad, I drew a picture of our family." Richard looked at the paper and saw all of them sketched out. Him, Sarah, William, Emily, and Jennifer, all holding hands, all smiling. "It's beautiful, son." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Is our family happy?" Richard glanced around the room. Sarah was softly humming to Emily. The Sunday afternoon was peaceful and cozy. Through the window, he could see Jennifer crossing the street to her house, waving at them. "Yes, son, our family is very happy." "Then it's good that you yelled at me that day." "Why?" "Because that's when I yelled back and said Aunt Sarah was the best mom. And then you realized love doesn't run out when you share it." Richard hugged his son, moved by his wisdom. "You're right, William, it was the best argument of our lives." That night, after the children were asleep, Richard and Sarah sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Richard, did you ever imagine your life would be like this?" "Never. But I couldn't picture it any other way now. Even with all the difficulties we've faced, especially because of them. They taught us that family isn't about perfection. It's about persistence, forgiveness, and unconditional love. And about accepting that love can take many forms." "Exactly. William's love for Jennifer is different from his love for you, but both are real and necessary." "How do you feel being the father of an unconventional family?" "I feel lucky, privileged, and most of all, I feel at peace." Richard took Sarah's hand. "Sarah, thank you." "For what?" "For insisting on loving my son, even when I wouldn't allow it. For teaching me that being a father isn't about control, but about nurturing. For turning our house into a home. Richard, you're the one who turned our house into a home when you chose to let go of fear and embrace love. It was a hard decision. The best ones usually are." They sat in silence for a few minutes, simply savoring the quiet of the night and the fullness of their lives. "Richard?" "Yes?" "Do you think William will tell this story to his children one day?" "I hope so. It's a beautiful story. It's a story about how sometimes we need to break in order to rebuild ourselves better. And about how love always finds a way to win, even when we try to stop it." Inside the house, William lay awake in his room, listening to his parents' conversation through the open window. He smiled in the dark, grateful to be part of that unique and special family. Emily, in her crib, slept peacefully, unaware she had been born into a family that redefined the meaning of love and togetherness. 3 blocks away, Jennifer stood on her porch, gazing toward the house where her extended family lived in harmony. She had found her way to be a mother, a wife, and a woman without having to give up any of those roles. Over time, the Thompson family's story would become a neighborhood legend. Neighbors talked about that unusual family who seemed to have discovered the secret to happiness. Mrs. Williams, now 75, always told her granddaughters, "Look at that family. They teach us there are no rules for love, there are only rules for pettiness." Years later, when William graduated high school, he gave a speech as class valedictorian. He spoke about family, love, and overcoming challenges. "I learned from my family that home isn't a place, it's a feeling, and that feeling can include as many people as our hearts can embrace." In the audience, Richard, Sarah, Jennifer, and Emily applauded with tears in their eyes, proud of the young man William had become. After the ceremony, at a celebration at home, William approached Sarah. "Mom, Sarah, can I tell you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Thank you for yelling that day." "What do you mean?" "For yelling, through me, that you were the best mom. If it weren't for that, maybe Dad would have never understood that a child can have more than one mother." Sarah hugged him, moved. "William, you were the one who yelled. But it was your love that gave me the courage to yell." Jennifer walked over to them. "Can I join this hug?" "Of course, Mom." The 3 embraced, and Richard, watching from a distance, felt his heart overflow with gratitude. Emily, now 5, ran up to them. "I want a family hug too." "Come here, princess." Richard joined the family embrace, and for a few minutes, there in the living room of the house that had once been cold and silent, they simply held each other in quiet contentment, feeling the fullness of being a family, a different family but a genuine one. A family that had learned love doesn't shrink when shared, it multiplies. A family that had discovered home is where understanding, patience, and unconditional care exist. When they finally pulled apart, William looked at them all and said, "This is the best family in the world." "Why?" Emily asked. "Because it's ours." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Richard made the right decision in the end? What unconventional family do you know that worked out? Leave your honest comment sharing your thoughts on this journey of love and resilience. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.